Welcome to another episode of the Remdesivir Files, a COVID-19 chronicle. I'm your host Sowmya, and today we dive into a critical technical aspect of Remdesivir, its formulation for intravenous use. Remdesivir is administered intravenously, and the process of designing such a formulation isn't as simple as putting the active ingredient into a saline solution. There are several challenges that come into play when making a drug fit for safe intravenous delivery. Well, we'll be exploring the issues of solubility, stability, and delivery systems. Joining me today is Saakshi Sharma. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I am excited to be here and discuss such an important aspect of Remdesivir.
Let's start with one of the fundamental challenges solubility. We know that remdesivir's active ingredient is a prodrug, meaning it has to be metabolized into its active form once inside the body. How does the solubility of the drug play a role in its formulation, and what challenges did the team face when preparing it for intravenous use?
Yes, solubility is one of the first major hurdles when formulating Remdesivir for IV administration. The prodrug form of Remdesivir, initially in its triphosphate form, it has limited water solubility, which makes it difficult to dissolve directly into an injectable solution. To address this, the pharmaceutical team had to employ solubilizing agents in order to enhance the solubility without compromising the drug's stability or bioavailability. In this case, cyclodextrins were used. These are the molecules that can encapsulate the active ingredient and allow it to dissolve in water more easily. However, this solution introduces its own challenges, as the solubilizing agents need to be carefully optimized to avoid toxicity or other adverse reactions when the drug is administered. Moreover, the drug's concentrations need to be high enough to be effective in treating COVID-19. So, achieving that balance between solubility and maintaining a sterile, non-toxic, injectable product requires extensive testing and careful formulation. This challenge, coupled with the urgency of the pandemic, made the formulation process particularly demanding.
That's an interesting point of solubility and the use of cyclodextrins. Moving on to stability, remdesivir needs to maintain its effectiveness and safety during storage and transport, particularly in cold chain environments. What were some of the key stability challenges encountered and how were they addressed?
Stability is another critical concern. Drugs intended for intravenous use must remain stable both during storage and once administered. For remdesivir, the active ingredient is somewhat sensitive to heat and light, so ensuring stability at room temperature and during shipping was essential. It needed to maintain its potency while avoiding degradation. To ensure stability, the formulation needed to be carefully adjusted with preservatives and buffers that would keep the drug's pH within an optimal range. Some of these substances help stabilize the drug during storage and also prevent hydrolysis, which is a chemical breakdown of the drug when it's exposed to water. Another aspect of stability challenge is that once diluted for infusion, remdesivir needs to maintain its integrity through the entire intravenous infusion process. This meant conducting rigorous stability testing under various temperature conditions, simulating long-term transportation, and also ensuring that even at suboptimal conditions, the drug did not lose its efficacy or become unsafe for use.
It seems like stability and solubility were tightly interconnected in remdesivir's formulation. Now, let's talk about the delivery system. As an intravenous drug, remdesivir requires careful administration to ensure that patients receive the correct dosage and the drug is delivered effectively. Could you walk us through the considerations when developing this delivery system?
Absolutely. The intravenous delivery system for remdesivir required careful attention to both the dosing and the administration mechanics. First and foremost, the dose had to be carefully calculated and adjusted for patients based on their weight, condition, and response to the treatment. One of the challenges with intravenous formulation is ensuring the drug doesn't cause irritation or inflammation at the injection site. Since remdesivir is delivered in an infusion format, It has to be compatible with intravenous fluids like saline or dextrose solutions. Ensuring compatibility with these solutions and avoiding precipitates or other adverse reactions when combined required extensive formulation testing. The rate of infusion is another critical consideration. If administered too quickly, remdesivir could cause side effects such as hypotension or other cardiovascular complications. The infusion rate was therefore optimized, making sure that the fluid volume and concentrations were within safe and effective ranges. Moreover, from a delivery system perspective, the design of the infusion bags and the materials used to store the solution needed to be non-reactive and also capable of maintaining drug stability while preventing contamination. This involves compatibility testing with materials such as PVC, rubber stoppers, and infusion tubing to ensure that there was no interaction with the formulation.
It's remarkable how much goes into ensuring the drug is delivered safely and effectively. One final aspect I want to touch on is regulatory compliance. With the pandemic, the process of bringing remdesivir to market was expedited. However, even under those circumstances, the formulation had to meet stringent GMP standards. Can you elaborate on how these were maintained during the emergency production?
Certainly, during emergencies, pharmaceutical companies may face significant pressure to produce and distribute drugs quickly. However, good manufacturing practices, or what we call GMP, still need to be strictly adhered to, particularly for an injectable drug like remdesivir. GMP involves ensuring that facilities are properly equipped, equipment is calibrated, and personnel are trained to maintain quality control at every step of the production process. Even though production was ramped up, there was no compromise on these standards. In fact, because of the need for the rapid production, the oversight and regulatory inspections were often more rigorous to ensure that emergency production did not result in the compromised quality. Regulatory bodies like the FDA, EMA, and others provided guidance and temporary accommodations, but they still required full compliance with sterility testing, identity testing, and purity testing before approval. In short, while the pressure to produce the drug quickly was immense, the quality control systems remained unchanged to ensure that the drug would remain both safe and effective for the patients worldwide.
That's incredibly insightful. Thank you for taking us through the formulation and delivery system challenges of remdesivir. Saakshi, it's clear that producing a drug for intravenous use, especially in a pandemic, is far from simple.
It's been my pleasure to dive into the complexities of this process. The pharmaceuticals industry's ability to adapt and innovate in such a short time frame is truly remarkable, and remdesivir is a great example of that.
That wraps up today's episode of the Remdesivir Files. Stay tuned for the next episode where we'll discuss the scarcity of remdesivir amid COVID. Until next time, thank you for listening.